is the New York City Police Department. You have been warned as per City College to leave the campus.
Look at this. Somebody is being beaten. Somebody is being beaten with a stick and punches in the middle of the lawn.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
In the last week, spontaneously, protests have erupted all over the nation at colleges. At a glance, you might think this is by accident that organically happened, but with just the smallest of a closer look, you can see it's very much not the case. So it turns out since 2016, George Soros has given $15 million to pro-Palestine groups. There are the same groups that are protesting at all these colleges now. He was sneaky about the way he did it. He uses his nonprofit, tax-evading slush fund, Open Society, that he's given almost $40 billion to over the course of his lifetime. The money starts there, but then he uses what's called a fiscal sponsor to sort of dilute and hide where the money's actually coming from. He sent $13.5 million to the Tide Foundation. It's been known for causing a whole bunch of trouble themselves. Gives money to things like protests and whatnot. Then the Tide organization is giving money to all different groups around the country right now. So ready? $650,000 to the group Jewish Voice for Peace. $710,000 to Adala Justice for Peace, a pro-Palestine group. $86,000 to If Not Now. $38,000 to Progressive Center for Constitutional Rights, $600,000 to Mass Liberation Project, $132,000 for Westpac Foundation, another pro-Palestine group. Two of the biggest donors to these pro-Palestine causes have been Open Society and the Rockefeller's Brother Fund. So how is this money being used? How overt is this? Well, in some cases, they're even paying students thousands of dollars to lead these protests. The U.S. Campaign for Palestine Rights pay $7,800 to its community-based fellows for 3-month clips of 8 hours of work per week. Not too bad, especially for a college kid. And they pay between $2,800 and $3,600 to youth fellows. They also provide funding for food, tents, even bail in some cases, in case they get too rowdy. You see this chart here from Wall Street Journal. The circles represent colleges in the U.S. that have protests going on over the past week. Now you see there's dozens, if not hundreds of colleges where protests have spontaneously erupted. There's nothing organic about this at all. Here's some of the more notable colleges. So Columbia, over 100 protesters arrested this past week. Yale University, over 50 student protesters arrested. Princeton, Harvard, Northwestern, George Washington. Some are being more lenient than others. UCLA has protests, but there's no trace of campus security doing anything about it.
Where are the police? Where is security? Where are these people? Just where is authority here? It is something I have never covered without any sign of enforcement, law enforcement, security whatsoever. This has gone now on for over an hour and a half, and it is absolutely appalling, in my estimation, that we have not seen any response. I've just never seen it.
USC, 93 arrested. University of Texas, 50 arrested. NYU, 100 students and 20 professors arrested. Now, the hilarious thing about this is that the vast majority of these students have no idea what they're protesting for. Check out what this girl says right here.
And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free!
I wish I was more educated. I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support. So I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
I mean, what are you doing? I guarantee you walk up to 90% of these people, they can't tell you the first thing about the history of Israel and Palestine relations. Now, George Soros, ironically, as a Jewish person, he apparently hates Israel. He's been quoted as saying, "I'm proud to be Jewish, but it's taken me my whole life to get there." And while I was researching this topic, I even found an old essay by George Soros from 2007 when he was irate at President Bush for calling Hamas a terrorist organization when it got elected to political power in 2007. He was a big advocate for the U.S. recognizing Hamas as a legitimate government political party. Now that begs the question, did Soros have anything to do with getting Hamas elected in the first place? Maybe, but that's a story for another day. Now that leads me to a very interesting but very overlooked topic of the 501c3 foundations. So these are tax-exempt foundations. They're the non-profits like the Clinton Foundation, like Open Society. And a lot of rich people start these things to, pay less in taxes, but they're able to create massive influence with it. In 2018, the Global Philanthropy Report by Harvard and UBS identified around 260,000 philanthropic foundations in more than 40 countries, and the fixed assets of the foundations exceeded $1.5 trillion. There's 147,000 of them in the U.S. alone. According to Harvard and UBS, 35% of nearly 30,000 foundations direct resources towards quality education initiatives. And the study found that higher education, meaning college, received more than all other levels of education combined. So you hear about all this big donor money that Harvard and these big schools get. That's the real cash cow for them. It's not even tuition, it's the donor money they get. And a lot of it comes from either federal government grants or private donors, like in this situation. And what happens when you send billions and sometimes trillions of dollars to these colleges? You could have massive influence of what these crazy professors teach. So that's what's happening here. As a young person in your teens, you're wired to want to feel like you're fighting for something, be passionate about something, feel like you're doing something important that's changing the course of history. But sometimes what you're doing is just fucking stupid. And in the 60s when they were protesting Vietnam, that's a cause worth fighting for and protesting. But what are you doing here with this Palestine thing? It's an extremely complex situation with so many factors to it. Even people who spend their entire life studying this thing don't have a rock-solid answer on the way that things should be. So the fact that hundreds of thousands of college students are out there protesting fervently, acting like they know which side of this thing is the right side to be on, is hilarious and crazy. But they're being manipulated. There's no two ways about it. And mark my words, I'm calling it right now. This is playing out the exact same way as the BLM stuff, which Soros also gave $200 million to initiatives like that over the course of the last decade. This college protest thing for Palestine, I could see a situation exactly like the George Floyd situation where the police are being pretty aggressive now. They're dragging kids out of there. Kids are pushing cops, getting crazy. So I could see a situation where police and protesters get confrontational, somebody gets hurt, if not, God forbid, killed, and then, boom, even crazier riots erupt. So the main takeaway from this should be that Soros, Magneto as Musk calls him, he's kind of like, I'd even call him more like the Joker from Batman, because, there's that line that they say in Batman, some people just want to see the world burn, and that's what Soros wants. He calls his group Open Society because his whole philosophy is that he wants an open society with no borders, one government. He thinks that's the utopian situation. He hates America, he hates Israel, and wants to erode these societies by causing chaos. And people either realize it and don't care, or they have no idea that that's what's going on. And one of those two things are forgivable. It's okay, in my eyes, if you're being manipulated, don't know what's going on, okay, you could be fixed. But if you know that this is what's going on, turning a blind eye to it, and going ahead protesting or going ahead and having a strong opinion in one way because, you think that's the politically correct thing to do, then you're worse than Soros himself. So solutions. These giant donations that are flooding colleges with money from these foundations, we need to take a close look at exactly what strings are attached to this money going to these institutions. Because Soros has been flooding colleges with money for years, and colleges have been miraculously getting more and more extreme in one direction of the way that they're teaching kids to think. A very bad person that we all know about said one time, if you want to change and corrupt a society, if you want to control society, control the youth. So taking these impressionable college kids and twisting them into this extremist mindset, poison for our country. And that's exactly what he wants. So any president or congressional representative that cares about the minds of our youth not being corrupted needs to take a much closer look at how these donations to these colleges work, make sure there's no strings attached, and all the crazy federal funding grants that go to these colleges, stop giving them that stuff if they're teaching this crazy shit that we see them doing. We need scientists, engineers, builders, technicians, doctors. We don't need liberal arts and gender studies. But as I always say when I'm president, I'm going to do exactly what I said. Make sure there's no strings attached to these donations that go to colleges. And be very, very intentional about who gets federal funding and what they're allowed to do with it. And if you enjoyed this, check out this playlist. If you want to talk to me more about this issue, connect with me on Minnect. Thank you for watching. God bless.